With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters in Washington. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says a senior North Korean official with whom he met today in New York will head to Washington tomorrow.
Pompeo says former North Korean military intelligence chief Kim Young-chol will deliver a letter to President Trump from Kim Jong-un as work towards setting the stage for a Trump-Kim summit next month continues.
We've made real progress in the last 72 hours towards setting the conditions.
Pompeo says he doesn't yet know if the meeting will happen on June 12th, but says he believes North Korea's leaders are seriously contemplating a big change in their nation's behavior. These meetings are a once-in-a-lifetime chance for peace and prosperity.
Our two countries face a pivotal moment in our relationship in which it could be nothing short of tragic to let this opportunity go to waste.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The Russian journalist who worked with Ukrainian authorities to fake his own death said Thursday that the elaborately staged murder included getting smeared in pig's blood and being taken to the morgue. Arkady Babchenko detailed the deception to fellow reporters for the first time since Ukrainian authorities revealed Wednesday they arranged to make it look like the Kremlin critic was shot dead to foil an alleged plot on his life by Moscow's security services. Ukraine expert Orisia Lutsevich says she quite understands why the Ukrainian authorities would set up such a dramatic operation.
These extraordinary times call for some extraordinary measures. And I think they, rather than running a very covert, very discreet secret service operation, has decided to go on a more public, we wouldn't say theatrical, way of an operation. I think to attract attention.
The Ukrainian agents told Babchenko the Russian security services have placed an order for his murder. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 252 points, the Nasdaq dropped 20, the S&P lower by 19. This is SRN News. A Christian ministry lays down the law.
The American Bible Society is requiring all its employees to sign a statement of faith, prompting some to resign. Religion News Service reports the document includes an affirmation of Christian faith and a vow to be faithful in marriage and celibate otherwise. Some homosexual employees of ABS apparently have a problem with the statement of faith and have chosen to resign. All employees must sign the document by year's end. Michael Harrington, SRN News.
A Christian candidate for governor in Massachusetts is shutting down a pro-family ministry he founded. Republican Scott Lively says he still believes society should follow the Bible as a guide to sexual morality and public policy, but he adds he hopes to enlist authentically conservative homosexuals and political liberals in his efforts to shift his emphasis to a conservationist perspective in which the natural family is recognized as the essential ecosystem of humanity. Lively, a pastor, started Abiding Truth Ministries in 1997. This is SRN News. Sears continues to struggle.
Sears is closing another 72 stores after reporting first quarter losses and plunging sales. The retailer says it's identified about 100 stores that are no longer turning profits, and 72 of those locations will be shuttered soon. Illinois-based Sears Holding Corporation lost $424 million, or $3.93 per share in its first quarter. I'm Matt Small.
Italy's president has tapped politically inexperienced law professor Giuseppe Conte to be the premier who will head Italy's first populist government. Conte has accepted the role and will be sworn in Friday afternoon with cabinet ministers. The announcement indicated that President Sergio Mattarella had accepted all the ministers proposed by the anti-EU five-star movement on their second try. The populist choice for a Eurosceptic economy minister was a sticking point that led their first attempt to form a government to fail last weekend. More details at srnnews.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington.
Hey, Steve Harvey here for the Illinois Broadcasters Association, and in a recent survey, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency was asked to name the top 5 items that every Illinois family needs to have in their home's emergency disaster kit. Check out these answers. Water, can't live without it. Number 2, non-perishable food. Well, after all, a man gotta eat, right? Number 3, weather radio, and make sure you got fresh batteries too. Number 4, flashlight. Even more reason to have fresh batteries on hand. Number 5, first aid kit. Look, there's no reason to feud over what items to put in your family's emergency disaster kit. Get the answers and more at ready.illinois.gov. That's ready.illinois.gov.
Sponsored by the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, aired in cooperation with the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
USA Radio News.
Today in New York City, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo wrapped up his talks with a top North Korean official. Former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper talks about some of his dealings with North Korea.
I met with this same gentleman when I went to North Korea in 2014 to bring out two of our citizens. And he was a very hard-nosed, anti-American, a great deal. He was very acrimonious. It was a very nasty, long dinner meeting I had with him. It was a very nice Korean meal, 13 courses, but it was a very unpleasant meeting. And I was really struck by the irony of Kim Jong-un appointing him as the senior interlocutor with the United States.
TBS Full Frontal host Samantha Bee apologized today after she used an extreme vulgarity last night to slam Ivanka Trump in her monologue. This is USA Radio News. There's more good news from a critical sector of the U.S. economy. As USA Radio Network's Chris Barnes reports.
A survey just out from the National Federation of Independent Business says it's one of the best times ever for small businesses in the history of America. The Federation's Small Business Economic Trends report finding 76% of small business owners find the current business environment positive. It also says 44% of them are planning to increase employee compensation this year. 27% are planning to add workers. And for USA Radio News, I'm Chris Barnes.
One of the president's big applause lines when he goes out and does his rallies like he did earlier this week was talking about the wall and how Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Well, Diane Black, she's a congresswoman from Tennessee, she has another idea of how folks can help pay for the wall.
Have a dedicated fund within the Treasury where the American people who want to see the wall will have an opportunity to be able to just send their money in.
This is USA Radio News. New guidelines say most people should start getting colorectal cancer screenings earlier. Now, the American Cancer Society is saying testing for men and women with average risk should begin at the age of 45. But what exactly is average risk? Dr. Jonathan LaPook is with New York's Langoon Medical Center. He explains average risk.
Average risk are basically people, it's most people who don't have a high risk. A high risk would be somebody with a family history of colon cancer, or somebody has a certain genetic condition, or you have a certain kind of inflammatory bowel disease.
And, Doctor, why the increase in colon cancer?
Some people wonder, is it obesity? Is it lack of exercise, diet, something in the environment? What I think is really interesting is the possibility it's the microbiome. So the trillions of bacteria that are in our gut, and there's 1,000 to 2,000 different species. And it turns out that certain of those species are linked to an increased risk of colon cancer. And when you think about it, we have been changing our microbiome. We take antibiotics, our diet has changed, and one of the theories is that we're messing up our microbiome and increasing the risk that way. That's just the theory.
President Trump announced today that he was granting a pardon to conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza. The president tweeted, "We'll be giving a full pardon to Dinesh D'Souza today. He was treated very unfairly by our government." Now, remember, D'Souza was convicted of making an illegal campaign contribution in 2014. He pled guilty to giving $20,000 to a politician in New York and was sentenced to 5 years of probation and 8 months in a halfway house, and he also had to pay a $30,000 fine. For USA Radio News, I'm Tim Berg.
Over 460 million people around the world have disabling hearing loss. Starkey Hearing Foundation provides hearing aids and hearing-related health care to millions of patients in over 100 countries. But they need your support to continue helping those in need. Give the gift of hearing by donating to the Listen In campaign. Go to listenincampaign.org to donate today. That's listenincampaign.org.
Trump and Kim searching for a shooting suspect. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met in New York today with a top North Korean official.
The proposed summit offers a historic opening for President Trump and Chairman Kim to boldly lead the United States and the DPRK into a new era of peace, prosperity, and security.
A letter written by Kim Jong-un will be hand-delivered to another North Korean official to President Trump tomorrow. Police organizations from across the country donate to a reward fund of now $35,000 for information leading to the arrest of a man sought by police in the shooting of a Tennessee sheriff's deputy. Dixon County Sheriff Jeff Bledsoe says tips about Stephen Wiggins have been coming in from the area as well as neighboring states.
We treat each one like it's valid and it's real. We are on that heightened sense of alert. We're treating it as if that threat is there and that he's there.
10-year veteran Sheriff Sergeant Daniel Baker was shot and killed yesterday as he was investigating a suspicious car, reports. I'm Tim McGuire.
Over 460 million people around the world have disabling hearing loss. Starkey Hearing Foundation provides hearing aids and hearing-related healthcare to millions of patients in over 100 countries. But they need your support to continue helping those in need. Give the gift of hearing by donating to the Listen In campaign. Go to listenincampaign.org to donate today. That's listenincampaign.org.
Today we decided to walk to school. The light counted. 15, 14,
41, 31, 13.
We took a left on Carroll Street. Danny's smart, but he gets distracted.
I
realized he forgot his homework. I hope he doesn't have another bad day at school.
When you can see learning and attention issues from their side, you can be on their side. That's why there's Understood.org, a free resource for the parents of the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues. Go from misunderstanding to Understood.org. Brought to you by Understood and the Ad Council.
From CBC News, The World This Hour, I'm Susan McNamee. Ottawa is responding to the U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. Washington is also targeting Mexico and the European Union with a 25% levy on steel and 10% on aluminum. Canada had been hoping to avoid a trade war, but says it will be retaliating with tariffs of its own. Karina Roman reports.
These tariffs are totally unacceptable.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the Trump administration doesn't realize how serious it is to cite national security as a pretext for the tariffs. After all, Canada and the U.S. are the closest of allies in world wars, September 11th, NORAD, and NATO. Trudeau also argues the tariffs will hurt workers on both sides of the border and that he has to hope common sense will eventually prevail.
But we see no sign of that in this action today by the U.S. administration.
Canada is retaliating with $16.6 billion in tariffs on U.S. exports to Canada. Everything from steel and aluminum to coffee, whiskey, and ketchup. Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland.
This is the strongest trade action Canada has taken in the post-war era.
The U.S. has also tied the tariffs to the lack of progress on NAFTA. Trudeau was prepared to meet with Trump last week, but Trudeau says he wouldn't agree to Trump's precondition that Canada first agree to a NAFTA sunset clause. Karina Roman, CBC News, Ottawa.
Freeland adds the tariffs on U.S. imports will go into effect on July 1st. In the meantime, she says talks with Washington continue. The U.S. action is creating a buzz at a gathering of the G7 finance ministers. They're meeting in Whistler ahead of next week's G7 summit in Quebec. Greg Rasmussen reports.
The tariffs were announced as Finance Minister Bill Morneau opened 3 days of meetings with his counterparts from the world's largest economies. The long-planned agenda for this Group of 7 meeting suddenly overshadowed by today's announcement from Washington. Speaking to reporters, Morneau said Canada has no choice but to retaliate.
These tariffs don't make sense. They don't make sense economically. They hurt Canadians. They hurt Americans.
Christine Lagarde, head of the International Monetary Fund, is also in Whistler. Speaking on a panel, she said the loss of trust between trading nations worries her.
It's going to distort and damage and disrupt supply chains which have been established now for decades on the basis of...
Lagarde says she hopes G7 finance ministers and central bankers meeting here this week can find ways to avoid escalating these growing disputes. Greg Rasmussen, CBC News, Whistler.
In other news, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says great progress has been made in talks with North Korea in the last 72 hours. Pompeo has been meeting with a senior North Korean official in New York. He's confident things are moving in the right direction for a U.S.-North Korea summit to go ahead.
The proposed summit offers a historic opening for President Trump and Chairman Kim to boldly lead the United States and the DPRK into a new era of peace, prosperity, and security. Our two countries face a pivotal moment in our relationship in which it could be nothing short of tragic to let this opportunity go to waste.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Quebec's College of Physicians is warning that a lack of palliative care is causing patients to choose physician-assisted dying instead. Justin Hayward reports.
At a clinic in Montreal, a doctor checks Claudine Jodoin's heart. Jodoin has terminal cancer, but she wants to live out her final years as fully as possible. That's made easier by her weekly visits to La Maison Victor Gadebois, which offers physical and spiritual comfort to people who are dying. Jodoin says her religious beliefs prevent her from seeking medically assisted dying, but others who don't have her access to palliative care could be choosing to end their lives with medical help. So says Quebec's College of Physicians in a letter to the province's health ministry. Dr. Charles Bernard heads the college.
If we don't recruit and if we don't give a little help, in a few years from now, we will have a real problem.
The letter calls for more resources. Gaëtan Barrette is the province's health minister. He says Quebec is in the middle of a 5-year plan to better support palliative care. Justin Hayward, CBC News, Montreal.
That's the news. I'm Susan McNamee.
They were outnumbered, out-equipped. They had no chance of winning, but they had one huge advantage: General George Washington.
The fate of unborn millions will now depend, under God, on the courage and conduct of this army. We have to resolve to conquer or die.
Just as the leadership of one man helped form a nation, today leadership can transform the world. Leadership is in you. Now pass it on from passiton.com.
Your NBC Sports Radio update starts now.
Next stop, the Oracle. I am Keith Urizari. Game 1, NBA Finals tonight. Cavaliers at the Warriors. Kevin Love cleared earlier this day of the concussion protocol. He will start. We know this, Andre Iguodala. He was ruled out as of yesterday. Vegas, they have the Cavaliers as 13-point underdogs now, moving from 12 then to 12.5 as recent as yesterday. The biggest underdog status in at least 16 years going into an NBA final. Seemingly no one giving Cleveland a chance. Does head coach Ty Lue care about that?
You know, we see it, but we're focused on ourselves. And, I don't think we need that as motivation. I think when you get into the NBA Finals and you prepare and you scrap and claw all season to get to this point, there's no added motivation, just except for being in the NBA Finals and trying to win a championship.
French Open second round. Let's do some men's winners. Rafa Nadal, Juan Martín del Potro, Marin Cilic, Dominic Thiem, Kevin Anderson, and John Isner. Women's side, Simona Halep, Garbina Muguruza, and Angelique Kerber. Also, Serena Williams gets a win in 3 sets over Ashley Barty. Women's side, an upset. Number 15, Coco Vandeweghe, the American. She falls. Good news for the LA Dodgers as Clayton Kershaw has been activated, has not pitched pretty much most of May with left biceps tendinitis. In total, 11 baseball games today. With Hotels.com, you can get rewarded basically everywhere. They have all the options you're searching for in one place, and for every 10 nights you stay, you get one free. Hotels.com. You do you and get rewarded. Free nights do not include taxes and fees. I'm Keith Urizari. It's NBC Sports Radio and the NBC Sports Radio mobile app.
Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise.
And all was Benjamin Franklin wise. So you actually think electricity can pass through metal? Ha! Ben Franklin, go fly a kite.
Excellent idea. Where are my keys?
Besides the bifocals, Ben invented the Franklin
Up
stove,
you go!
the odometer, oh, and the lightning rod. Ingenuity, pass it on. From the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com.
This is Betty White. I know you don't need one more thing to worry about, but listen. High blood pressure can cause kidney damage, blindness, heart attack, stroke. And you can have high blood pressure even if you feel all right. 1 in 7 adults has it, but it's easy to get your blood pressure checked, and you can treat it if it is too high. So don't worry about it. Don't ignore it. Just see your doctor and check it out.
For your free booklet, visit the Will Rogers Institute at wrinstitute.org and find us on Facebook and Twitter.